Hey, welcome to ParkNotes. I'm Parker Settecase. I'm a philosopher, and this is a channel where I help you study, think, and read more deeply. In this video, I'm going to show you how I actually use my Commonplace books. But in order to get us there, I want to talk about what a Commonplace book is, why Commonplace books have been so popular lately, and I'm going to use some help from my friend Jared Henderson. Then I'll give you my quick little analysis of Commonplace books, the 4 different kinds that you can keep, and then I'll finish by showing you examples of how I use my Commonplace books. This video is sponsored by Brilliant, but more on that later. Let's jump right in. Okay, so first things first, a Commonplace book is just a collection of quotations in one spot that you use for a given purpose. Now, there are different purposes that you can use a Commonplace book for, but every Commonplace book is going to be a collection of quotations all in one spot. You can keep these digitally, but I much prefer using analog methods like a notebook. Now, if that seems pretty simple to you, it is. It can get more complex, and we're going to get there later in the video. But you may be asking yourself, if that's all a Commonplace book is, then how'd they become so popular? Now, I've been keeping Commonplace books for over 11 years now, but just recently they've exploded on YouTube. I'm pretty sure Commonplace books single-handedly blew up this channel, as well as my friend Jared Henderson's channel. Now, I recently had Jared on this channel for a live stream, and I asked him, why are Commonplace books having such a moment right now? How come they blew up? How did they launch both his channel and my channel? So let's hear from Jared in his own words. Dude, I want to talk about the Commonplace book boom of 2023. What happened? Dude, both of our channels blew up because of Commonplace books. Was there a glitch in the algorithm? Why did everyone like Commonplace books last year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, so for a little bit of context, my very first real video is about Commonplace books, and it's like a blank book. It's a blank notebook, top down. My face isn't in it. I'm talking. I'm barely editing, and I'm just talking about a Commonplace book. It's so bad. And it got 100,000 views. I have no idea how this could happen. But I think what kind of happened very broadly is that people wanted something that felt more real. There had been a huge note-taking boom 5 years ago, maybe we might say it started. Notion got huge. Rome research was just a thing no one talks about anymore, but it was the thing for a while, right? It sort of imploded. But there were all of these personal knowledge management systems. That was the phrase, right? You probably heard a lot of this.
Second brains and
second brains. I mean, that book sold well and stuff, but I think that people found it refreshing to just be oh, I could just do this in a notebook, and there's not a system to it. I mean, you can make a system out of your Commonplace book. John Locke had a system for his Commonplace book with all these.
I'm still trying to figure that out, dude.
And I have just never done that. There's basically just a repository where I just write things down. And I think there's something about the simplicity of the idea, and then the fact that it's just it's not digital. It's not on your computer. It's not on a screen. And I do occasionally get comments on those videos that are just use Obsidian. Just use and I always want to respond with it's just completely missing the point, because they'll be but it's so much more efficient. It's so much more searchable. And I'm I know it's searchable. I know it's efficient. I'm I'm trying not to do that this time, right? I'm trying. And I think that, man, people just got sick of doing stuff on screens all the time. It's very funny to say this as I look into a monitor, and then people watch us on YouTube, but I think that there's a certain kind of person who just doesn't want the most efficient thing. They don't want the most streamlined, searchable, whatever. So the Commonplace book thing just seemed cool by comparison. And also, frankly, they look good because you have this whole beat up journal at the end. That's just full of other people's thoughts and you working out your ideas in a way that no database will ever feel that good.
All right, so there you have it. That's why Jared thinks Commonplace books have been so popular lately, and I think he's right. Now, if you're interested in Commonplace books and the life of the mind, then you're going to love the sponsor for this video, Brilliant. I love Brilliant, and that's because Brilliant is where you learn by doing. They have thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI. Now, Brilliant is a learning platform designed to be uniquely effective. They have this first principles approach, which helps you build understanding from the ground up. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that help you play with concepts as you learn, which is a method proven to be 6 times more effective than just watching lecture videos. Plus, all the content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from places like MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and more. Brilliant helps you develop your critical critical thinking skills through problem solving, not just memorizing. So while you're building real knowledge on specific topics, you'll also become a better thinker. Brilliant's growing number of programming courses are a great way to build foundations and learn real-world applications. They've also launched a ton of new content and data, all of which uses real-world data to train you to see trends and make better informed decisions. But my favorite so far is How LLMs Work. It's an immersive AI workshop that helps you experience and harness the mechanics of today's most advanced tools. So right now, my ParkNotes audience can try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for 30 days. Just visit brilliant.org/parknotes or click on the link in the description or the pinned comment, and you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. So now let me show you my 4-category analysis of Commonplace books, and then let's get into some nitty-gritty details on how I actually use them. So like I said, I've been keeping Commonplace books for about 11 years, but last year I decided to take a deep dive into the philosophy and the history of Commonplace books. It's actually a really cool history with a ton of notable philosophers in it. But I don't want to cover the full history here. If you want to see more on the history of Commonplace books, check this video out over here. What I do want to talk about is the 4 categories that I've developed since studying the history of Commonplace books and seeing how philosophers and rhetoricians have used them throughout history. Now, at the most basic level, a Commonplace book is just a collection of quotations, but there are at least 4 different ways that you can go about doing that. So first up is the scope of the Commonplace book. Is it going to be general or topic specific? If it's topic specific, then you're going to limit the scope of the Commonplace book to a single topic. If it's a general Commonplace book, then the scope isn't limited at all. You just take your favorite quotations and you put them in your general Commonplace book. So that's the scope. Next up is the purpose. What are you using this Commonplace book for? Is it a treasury or is it a manuscript Commonplace book? If it's a treasury, then you're just going to collect quotations. You're going to maybe read back through them later. Maybe you'll pull from these quotes when you're giving a sermon or when you're performing a wedding, when you're giving a toast, maybe if you're writing a blog or a paper for school. Whenever you're going to need quotations, you pull from your treasury Commonplace book. Now, a manuscript Commonplace book, on the other hand, is where you take the quotations and you add your own thoughts to them. Maybe you give your own exegesis. Here's what this quote means. You give some context. Maybe you analyze it yourself. Maybe you're manuscripting out your sermon or your speech or your blog post right there in the Commonplace book. So you have the scope and you have the purpose. Now you can mix these 4 into like a Punnett square here and come up with 4 kinds of Commonplace books. A general treasury Commonplace book where the scope is unlimited and you're just collecting quotations. A topic specific treasury Commonplace book where the scope is limited to a single topic, but again, you're just collecting the quotes. You're not adding any of your own ideas. A general manuscript Commonplace book where the scope is unlimited, but you're creating manuscripts in the Commonplace book. So you're adding your own exegesis, your own ideas, your own thoughts, your own commentary, your own reviews. And then a topic-specific manuscript Commonplace book where you're collecting quotes and you're writing your own manuscript about a particular topic. I hope those categories help you figure out what Commonplace book is best for you. Now let me cover just a couple of my Commonplace books so I can show you how I actually use them. First up is my Pocket Proverbs Commonplace book, my Sententiarum, my collection of sententiae, sententious maxims, wise sayings. So this is a topic-specific treasury Commonplace book. The topic is Proverbs. It's Pocket Proverbs because this fits in my pocket. And it's a treasury Commonplace book because I'm just collecting the quotations. I'm not adding any of my own ideas in here. This is just a collection of wise sayings. So it's limited in scope. It's just about proverbs or maxims or aphorisms, wise sayings, gnomic statements. But I pull them from all different sources. So you'll see like Marcus Aurelius, you'll see the book of Proverbs, you'll see the TV show Ahsoka, you'll see some C.S. Lewis, you'll see a quote that I found on Facebook from the Wisconsin Wrestling Room from 1978, measure a man by the opposition it takes to discourage him. So I find wise sayings wherever I can, and I add them to my Pocket Proverbs Commonplace book, which is a topic-specific treasury Commonplace book. Actually, before we move on from the Pocket Proverbs, I want to show you one method I use for collecting proverbs for my Commonplace book. That is making marginal notes in the books that I'm reading. So I will just mark out a proverb where I find them, especially in like a fiction book. This is Foundation by Isaac Asimov. I just finished this one and it's fantastic. There's some really good proverbs in here. So I will highlight that or mark it in some way and I'll write proverb next to it. So once I'm done reading the book, I'll go through and find all the proverbs and I'll add them to my Commonplace book. I started using these little tabs in order to let myself know where I'm at in collecting out and harvesting those quotes. And if I can't do that all in one sitting, then I'll just move this tab to wherever I left off. That's an easy way to make sure I'm not double writing the proverbs in my Commonplace book. Now, if I find a wise saying in a movie or in a TV show that I'm watching, I'll often just write that down in my pocket notebook, my catch-all, and then I'll transfer that over to my Commonplace book at a later time. Okay, now we can move on. So next up is my proverb peddling specific manuscript Commonplace book. This is a Holtz Leather Company Shrunken Bison cover. This is like super rugged and really, really cool. I'm not an affiliate with these guys, so I can't give you a discount. But if you want one of these, check them out on Instagram. So Proverb Peddling is another one of my podcasts. You can find it here on YouTube. You can find the link in the description. Maybe I'll put a link up here to one of my videos. But this is my working notes. This is my manuscript Commonplace book. So it's topic specific. It's limited to my podcast, but it's not a treasury commonplace book like my pocket proverbs. It's a manuscript commonplace book because I'm actually manuscripting out my different episodes right here in my Commonplace book. I also put the full text of my podcast episodes on my Substack, so you can find that link in the description as well. It's called Parker's Ponderings if you're interested. So you can watch on YouTube or listen on Spotify, or you can just read the full thing on my Substack. Or I guess you could read along with the episode if you wanted that too. So this is a really good example of what I think a manuscript commonplace book is. I have a quotation and then I will add my own thoughts to it. I'm going to give some analysis, I'm going to give some background, some historical context, some exegesis, and then I'm going to analyze the thoughts. So this is my manuscript for episode 1, and the wise saying that I analyzed was from Blaise Pascal, from his Pensées, and it goes like this: "Man is only a reed, the weakest in nature, but he is a thinking reed." I absolutely love Pascal. I love the Pensées. My other podcast is called Parker's Pensées. It's Americanized butchering of Pensées. I do that because I'm an American swine, but I really, really love Pascal. So I chose a wise saying from his Pensées for episode number 1 of Proverb Peddling. Now, I used to have a really hard time getting all my thoughts together when it came time to write a blog post or present a podcast episode, but then I started manuscript commonplace books, and these are super helpful for me. So I can actually sit down and give an analysis of the quotation, and I can write it down here. I can write down my thoughts. I can come back and scratch those out and add new thoughts to it. I can make connections. Here I'm connecting to Psalm 8 and James 4. I can add context and historical background to the Pensées and specifically to the wise saying that I have in view, but I may not be able to do that all in one sitting, so it's great if I can write that down and come back and add more notes to it. And then lastly, I can give an application. Here's how I think this wise saying can be applied to your life today. So one of the best things about having a manuscript commonplace book is that I can look back at it when I'm thumbing through writing more episodes. I can look back at what I said about other thinkers. Now, you could probably do this if you have a folder on your computer with all your outlines in Word or something like that. But for me, it's so helpful having it all in one notebook. I can read back through the quotes that I found so helpful, and they can re-inspire me and help me come up with even more episodes. So here's the latest episode that I'm not done with yet, but the wise saying is, "Measure a man by the opposition it takes to discourage him." And I found this in a picture of the Wisconsin wrestling room. It's actually a picture of Lee Kemp, who's one of the best American wrestlers. It's from 1978, and the wise saying was on the wall behind him. If you know anything about wrestling rooms, you know there has to be some kind of aphorism on the wall. So I'm working through this one right now, and I want to put it in contact with Aristotle's golden mean of courage, where cowardice is on one side and foolhardiness or rashness is on the other side, but bravery is the golden mean in the middle. So I think that can be a helpful analysis of this wise saying. So I'm going to put that in here. So not only do I have this wise saying, but I also have quotations from Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. I'm also doing a word study on courage and discouragement. I got some antonyms and synonyms. So all that's going in my manuscript commonplace book. Now lastly, I'll show you my Parker's Ponderings General Manuscript Commonplace book. This is the commonplace book that I use to write my Parker's Ponderings Substack pieces. So this is a general manuscript commonplace book because I don't limit the topics. It's whatever I want to write about, that's going in here. My Substack is called Parker's Ponderings because it's just whatever I'm thinking about. So that's the scope. Whatever I am thinking about, I'm going to manuscript it out here in this commonplace book. So here you'll see really large block quotes and then my analysis of those. These are not intended for like a general audience to read. This is for me. So this all makes sense to me. It may look haphazard and crazy to you guys, but this is how I think best. So this is a post that I did on René Descartes and artificial intelligence. I think it's called How to Spot an Android with Descartes. It's actually like one of my best performing Substack pieces. So yeah, maybe go check that one out. Here's one that I'm still working on called Stoics on God. So I have a bunch of quotations that I've pulled from various different Stoics on their view of the divine. So I leave some blank pages because I have much more work to do on this piece. Here's C.S. Lewis on Stoicism. You can see back in January, I was thinking a lot about Stoicism. C.S. Lewis uses a lot of Stoic philosophy in his novel, Till We Have Faces. So I want to write a piece on that. Here's one that I wrote on Dune and the Butlerian Jihad. I think this became 2 pieces actually, and a video for ParkNotes. So that's pretty cool. So I don't have to go through this whole thing for you guys. You get the point. This is where I manuscript out my Substack pieces. It's a general commonplace book because the scope is not limited to anything other than what I'm pondering about. I keep it all in one spot because it helps me reflect on the posts that I made in the past, and thumbing through it just helps me get in the right mindset for writing Substack pieces. I got this idea because I was using commonplace books to manuscript out my papers when I was in seminary, working on my systematic theology degree and my theological studies degree, and then I carried that over to my philosophy of religion master's degree, and I manuscripted out all of my philosophy papers as well. And these 2 things are some of my most prized possessions. I have 2 journal articles that came from these. A lot of my old blog posts on Parker's Pensées have come from this. A lot of my Parker's Pensées episodes have come from this. I still pull from here to write my current Substack, Parker's Ponderings. These things are awesome. So I know some people will be saying, hey, you can just make a manuscript in a Word doc and keep those in a folder. But I've been using these for years and years, and they're so much better than a digital manuscript. I know this because I used to do digital manuscripts, like for my master's thesis, and I almost never go back and look at them. But if it were in here, I would thumb through it at least once a month. So those are manuscript commonplace books. Now, lastly, I just wanted to show you another notebook that I use. This I don't think is a commonplace book. It's my journal for my science fiction and fantasy writing, which I call Sages, Mages, and Wisdom Machines. It's actually a subsection of my Substack, and it's mostly science fiction with some fantasy sprinkled in there here and there. But here is where I keep all my notes for the short stories that I write. I'm also working on a novel, which I was keeping my notes in here, and I moved it to its own notebook because it was getting so intense and taking up this whole thing. Now, I consider this more of a journal than a commonplace book because journals are collections of your own ideas, whereas a commonplace book is a collection of quotations that you use for a specific purpose, whether it's just as a treasury or as a manuscript and you're adding your own ideas to them. This is just my own ideas. These are just my ideas for writing science fiction and fantasy. So maybe that will be helpful for you in distinguishing a journal from a commonplace book. Here's my latest foxhole triangulations. I try to shoehorn in some of my work on Donald Davidson's triangulation argument. I presented this paper at 2 different philosophy conferences, and I wanted to see if I could Trojan horse it into a science fiction story in order to disseminate it out to a broader audience. And so far, so good. People have been reading it and enjoying it. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, check out Sages, Mages, and Wisdom Machines, a subsection of my Substack, in the description. All right, so that's it. That's a glimpse of how I actually use my commonplace books. I hope you guys like that. I hope you like my analysis of commonplace books. It's been super helpful for me to get clear on how I use these and the purpose for which I use them and the scope that I'm going to limit or leave unlimited for my different commonplace books. If you guys made it this far into the video, then you are awesome. Leave me a notebook emoji in the comments so I know who the real ones are. And if you keep a topic-specific commonplace book, let me know in the comments what's the topic. And if you're going to start keeping a topic-specific commonplace book, also let me know in the comments what topics are you interested in? What topics do you think would be good to have a commonplace book on? If you guys like the work that I do on this channel, then consider becoming a paid subscriber over on my Substack. The Substack is Parker's Ponderings. You can find a link in the description. A lot of times people ask, how can we support you? That's the best way to do it. So thanks to all my subscribers and especially my paid subscribers there. All right, that's going to do it for now. I'll catch you guys next time.